Hey guys, and welcome to a very special Atomic Mass live transmission, home stream number 20. We're going to be rocking our Doctor Strange today, which I'm very excited to be working on. Of course, we finished up Ghost Rider last week, so Doctor Strange is kind of the last one on the docket to dive in and take care of. So we're going to go, and I'm just going to hop off this camera here. We're going to immediately move to the very exciting part, which is our Doctor Strange miniature. So if you guys had a wonderful weekend, had a lot of great times. It's great to see y'all in the chat, and we're just gonna dive in on painting Dr. Vincent Strange, or Stephen Vincent Strange, I suppose. I like to call him Vincent Strange because he has that middle name for a very specific reason. Very famous horror movie actor who inspired a lot of Doctor Strange's look in the comic. But yeah, Stephen Strange. I debated on how I wanted to approach painting this version of Strange. For a moment, I was really contemplating doing the Marvel Now version, which is black suit with the red trim, kind of a more sinister looking version. However, I painted a lot of black on Ghost Rider, so I thought we'd do something a little more traditional. Maybe Dallas will go a little off book or do the Marvel Now version. He needs an idea for his Strange. So I'm just going to start off, and we're just going to do the blue of his suit. And so we're going to start with Huldra Blue, which is a really great blue. It's got a nice green to it. It'll give us kind of a mystical color. And it's just so punchy. It works so well. So I'm just going to add a little glaze to it. And I'm just going to use our traditional technique of using the Zenith Prime that we've already started with. And then we're just going to get more light on our subject here. And we're just going to wash this color over the tunic. And we're going to go a bit more. There's a couple different options with Doctor Strange. If you look at a bunch of the references, you can see that sometimes the pants are also blue like the tunic. Sometimes the pants are black. I'm going to go ahead and go with the black pants just to give us a little bit of color difference. So I'm going to leave the pants not Huldra Blue, and we're going to use a different color. I'm taking a little bit more time than normal, just working around that symbol because the symbol is going to be white. And so I want to make sure that I don't get any paint on it if I can avoid it, because that'll just make doing the white color for the suits like stylized design a lot simpler and easier on me later on. So Huldra Blue, as you can see, is such a great punchy color. It's got so much pigment to it. It's nice depth. Like really this one layer is all I'm going to really have to worry about to get my colors going on. And everything very happened. So Dallas, you missed the fact that I told everyone that you'd be doing the Marvel Now version of Doctor Strange on your stream because I didn't want to do it. So I was highly tempted. But I don't know, I needed to paint something that wasn't black today. In terms of color, I wanted something a little more vibrant today. I'm just going to use my second brush to scrub off a bit of this blue that spilled out. So always keep that second brush around. It's not only great for blending, it's also great for doing little error fixes and correcting mistakes, because you can just use it and wipe it down, kind of like I did there. So I wasn't paying super close attention. I got a little bit on our tunic symbol, which I didn't want to do. Now, obviously, one of the techniques that you can use when painting that's really helpful is don't keep the miniature up and down all the time. Don't be afraid to turn it upside down to get new angles on it. It can really help, especially as you get to sides where your dominant hand is kind of at an odd angle. So really easy to like paint a face or do eyes this way when I'm right-handed, but really hard to come in and do the same motion this way. But if you turn them upside down, all of a sudden you're on that eye and you have the exact same angle. So, you know, paint in 3 dimensions. Use all of your available movement to get things positioned in a way that makes it easy for you to be able to get great results. The brush wants to do a little bit of a split on me today. It's being very uncooperative. So if you ever find that your bristles are starting to spread on you and they're not keeping a point, one of the ways you can fix that is to just take the brush loaded with paint and twist it as you drag it across something. Usually the palette will work really good. But you can use your finger, you can use a paper towel, anything like that. And after you rinse the brush, you should also do the same thing where you dry it by dragging it along and twisting it. That'll help that point stay. But it's a constant, it can be a constant battle sometimes when your brush decides that it's just not going to cooperate. And that's okay. You just work with it, work with it. Alright, so let's see, I'm going to switch to a little bit of a smaller brush and get in between the symbol. Because my bigger brush's point is being a little difficult. I'm not using contrast paints, I'm just using Scale 75 Fantasy colors. I have turned them into like a wash-like consistency, so it's kind of the same idea. We've just thinned down the paint, we're running them over a zenith. And so you can get, you know, it's just a technique. We're just using that wash technique, but with different paints. So you can turn any paint into a wash with just a little bit of medium and some water. And you can of course control how wet or how things are going. So alright, and I think this is it for our tunic. So we'll just go in. Ooh. See, I missed a little bit under the shoulder. The arms, and not that anyone will really look at the miniature from this angle, but just because we're here, just make sure to get all these sides. But I think we talked about know what you're painting and why. So for most of us, I think we're just trying to get really cool painted miniatures for the shelf, and then for when they're not on the gaming table, right? So no one is going to pick up the mini and look at it from the bottom down. You're going to see it, you know, from the gamer's eye view, and it's going to be from about arm's length away. So you can absolutely kind of use that to ignore and not spend a lot of time on the parts that people are never going to see, like the undersides of the miniature. Also, people don't pay a lot of attention to the legs or the feet. So you can kind of cheat on those a little bit. I put cheat in quotation marks because these are all just techniques. So you want to spend a lot of time on the spots that are going to draw a lot of the eye attention, and then let everything else go. I'm also going to do these strappings. I saw a piece of fan art online where the straps around his legs happen to be the same blue as the tunic, and so I think I'm going to replicate that here, just because I'm really digging this Holger blue right now, and I think it'll make a pretty cool tie-in because we're not doing the pants in the same color as the tunic. So we're just gonna have some fun and experiment, and you guys can't really see that because it's really in shadow under the cape, but I'm just coming back through, making these really quick. And again, no one's really going to see this too much, so I'm not stressing out too much about being super clean, but I do want to get some color on the back of this. And we'll just hit it with our black, and it'll be fine. But, I mean, I don't even know what these straps are for. They just seem like they'd be really obnoxious in terms of putting on your boots. But I guess, you know, mystic bindings or whatever they are, so. Yeah. And I'm taking a little bit of time just to make sure that I'm not getting too much overspill on the magic effect, because we want to keep that kind of clean too. So that painting it will be fun. We got to decide what color we want to do that ring. So I guess you guys can start thinking about that now and what you want to challenge me with. Because I currently don't have too much of a plan. So there's our blue. It's really great. We'll let that dry. We'll move on. We'll do the cape next. I mean, as far as the design process for the rings and how he stood, we went through a lot of different concepts for Doctor Strange until we landed on the idea that we wanted him suspended by the mystical rings, and this was a really big stretch for us at the time. Because again, the overall production process for I'm going to use Abyssal Blue for the pants, which is a really it's a black blue, but that blue is going to tie into that holder, and it's going to give me a nice kind of color flow from the bright to the dark. But yeah, we went through a lot of different ideas on Strange and what we wanted him doing and how things were going to go. And you know, one of the things about miniature design and production is that it's a long process to do hard plastic miniatures. So we kind of talked about this during virtual Gen Con, and we talked about it on stream, but you know, the things that you guys are seeing now, we were working on, you know, 12 to 18 months ago, depending on how complex and all that stuff. So, well, it's new to you. It's pretty old in terms of its life cycle to us, and we've moved on and done other things. But each project is always this really interesting learning process where, you know, we're applying what we've learned from previous projects and trying new things and trying to better ourselves and improve. It's just like painting a miniature or any other hobby. And so, you know, Strange was right on the tail of the Asgardians and Thor and Hela had pushed us in certain ways, and you know, we'd really stretched ourselves in terms of how do we make Hela fly and what does that mean for the souls, and Dallas took the Hela concept and really took it to that next level, and so we were now moving on to Strange, and we kind of looked at it, and there was this piece of art from Marvel that I really liked, and no matter what we did concept wise, I always kind of came back to it, and it was Doctor Strange kind of sitting in a cross-legged position, floating in the air in these mystic rings, which are actually the rings that are designed here. We're kind of floating around in, you know, in this not quite parallel to the ground, but 45 degree to the ground and everything. And I just, you know, to me, I was just like, man, if we could do that, it would be amazing. And so we kind of set ourselves the challenge, and by we, I mean we set Marco, our amazing engineer and sculptor, the challenge of like, I think, you know, we think we can do this, and Marco was like, I think we can do this. And so it really just became Marco taking time with the sculpt to explore and take the lessons that we learned in terms of the tolerances and what we could do in hard plastic and engineering and stuff. And so we went here, and this is what Marco came up with. And so I know a lot of people are asking how he connects. There are two little grooves here and here on the cape. So when you set him in and you push up, because you have to slide him in through the rings like this, you slide the rings over his head either way, they notch right in and then they just set. And so it's really easy to find that spot, and you can manipulate them a little bit around the circle, because obviously it's a circle, so you can have them a little bit more askew one way or the other. You can have them straight up and down. You can even have the legs right now, and this one are in the back, but when I assembled my first one, I had the legs in the front, so you can have the legs in the front. That gives them a little less more of a forward lean and a little more of a straight stance. So there's a lot of like options even within this build. And of course the other big one was, how does it stick to the ground in terms of the ring, and how much material do we need down there, and how do we make it look like it's not a big chunk. And so that came down to draft angles and kind of playing with illusionary tricks and building things out. So this ring is actually separate from this ring, so that you get that better grip and you can have this thicker piece that can be casted. So, you know, it's a whole bunch of different design elements and choices and challenges all thrown together to make a really awesome looking mystical effect. That at the time we were like, oh my gosh, this is the most amazing thing we ever did. And of course now, you know, this thing seems pretty. Not, I wouldn't say it's not magical. It's not exciting. It totally is. I love this miniature, but it's not as intimidating, I think is the word. It's not as intimidating. If we wanted to do something like this again, you know, Marco knows, we know what we can do. We can even improve and iterate on the process and build on it. So that's kind of the excitement of this and how it goes. I'm going to switch to my boots now. I'm just going to use some black ink. And I'm going to use my favorite friend, which is not scale, which is this Vallejo black glaze. I've talked about this a lot. It's one of my favorite ways to do like leathers, like black leathers and stuff like that. It's a really thick, almost like toothpaste. It's got a lot of grit in it, so you have to thin it out with medium and stuff. I like to mix it with a little bit of black ink and sometimes some black paint. But it makes a really nice, in my opinion, leather effect. It works really well for like textures and cloth and things like that. So I like to use it a lot when doing blacks, and it works pretty darn well just straight over the Zenith Prime as well if you want kind of a softer, well-worn leather. And of course any color that you put on it will actually change what it looks like, but I don't know how much this will show up because it's kind of a small area, but just going over these boots here to give them a different tone of black from our pants. So this is going to be a little more gray black, whereas the pants are like a dark black. And again, I'm kind of cheating on this because most of the boots are hidden behind the rings, so really no one's ever going to see this. So I can kind of just, cheat and do this really quick and just get paint on the miniature. So I don't expect anyone, except for the people watching this, because now they know to pick up Doctor Strange and really start inspecting the backs of his boots. So now we have the boots done really quick. And then, alright, where do we want to go next? We need to let the pants dry. We'll go back in and we'll add some highlights to them. So I guess we'll go to the cape. We're going to do cape red. I'm going to go back to another tried and true classic that we use quite a bit. This is Vallejo Model Air Red. So this is an airbrush paint. Same paint, it's just been thinned out for an airbrush, so it's kind of pre-thinned, so it makes a great kind of wash base just to start. I really like it for doing really bright primary kind of reds because you don't have to do much to it. Right out of the bottle, you just get it you can get a little more wet, but it covers really well. I used it for my Thor cape. Goes really well over Captain America's shield, so, but it's works really, really nice and really, really quick. And that's kind of my goal today. My goal is to do a bit of a faster, but still really fun and nice looking Strange. So we're pulling out all the tricks, you know, we're going full on Zenith Prime, washing, taking advantage of everything that technique gives us. And then the nice thing about it is that, you know, once we've laid down all this stuff, if we decide to go back, it's really easy to just do some highlighting, do a little shading, and just take it to the next level. And that's really the thing with hobbying, is that it's just about those steps, like how far do you want to take it. And this is why it's so important to kind of determine outright what's the goal of the miniature. Are you painting for yourself? Are you painting for competition? Are you painting for the tabletop? Are you just, you know, zenning out and exploring and having fun? All these things are valid, and so it just comes down to how much time do you want to spend, what's your goal, where do you want to wind up. And whatever that goal is, you know, it's perfectly great. It is the right goal for you. Now I will say one of the tricks that you really have to be careful of when painting with this paint or any of these kind of washes is you don't want to overwork the area. Kind of like if you're a baker, you don't want to overmix your batter, because you'll wind up at a point. Get off there, red. You'll wind up at a point to where you're actually doing more harm than good because the paint will be semi-set, and the last thing you want to do is put your wet brush on semi-set paint because it'll pull it up, and that'll leave these really ugly splotches that are basically impossible to fix. And of course nothing's impossible to correct, but it becomes extremely challenging and definitely not worth it. So the best thing you can do is to just kind of know your working time and know that you're going to go back for a second coat. You know, you should never really be trying to finish any of this stuff in one coat typically. Even with that Huldra blue, I might go back and hit a second coat, or I'm going to go back and I'm going to highlight and all that stuff. So just be very aware of that, and know that it's something that you definitely have to be careful of when using this technique. I think it's the one area where you can really fall down, and it can be hard to recover from. Because of course, no matter how thin you keep your paint, you're still building up layers of acrylic. Assuming you're using acrylic hobby paint, but you're building up layers of paint. And so that dimensionality does come into play. And this is why, you know, fixing chips and scratches on already painted miniatures can be such a hassle too. Because unfortunately, you then have to deal with the fact that you've got to fill up to make that level smooth. And so it can be a really big challenge. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do the sash red as well, because that's a pretty classic look. I'm just going to let that Huldra blue that spilled over act a little bit like a shade, because blue is an amazing shade for red. And that's kind of how I would shade that cape anyway. Would be use a little blue. Kind of just cheating. I'm not really worried about his backside so much because no one's going to see that. And we do have to hit the underside of the cape because people will see that as well. We'll get to that in a second. And I think half the time the sash is yellow or orange, and I could change that too if I want, but I'm just feeling the red, so we're just going to go the red. So I don't want to deal with a lot of colors right now. And we'll say that this is my nod to the Marvel Now version that I was going to do, because he has a red sash. A red sash and red gloves. But I'm not going to do the red gloves. We'll do the yellow gloves. Just to be really, you know, crazy. To make it our own. This is our own interpretation of Strange. So I don't have to be spot on in any way. It'll be strange enough by not being strange. Okay, I'll hit the underside of the cape. Yep, for those asking, the color on the shirt or the tunic is Huldra blue from the Scale 75 range. Their fantasy line. It's an amazing color. It's Dallas's favorite. I think he's painted like everything in it so far. He always sends pictures. We send pictures back and forth of like what we're working on and everything. And every time I look at it, I'm just like, "That's Huldra blue, isn't it?" He's like, "Yeah." So sometimes you find those colors that just gel. They just groove with you. You just go, man. You just go. Definitely a color I would recommend everybody have in their toolbox. It's really unique as well. There's not really a corollary to it that I've seen anywhere else in terms of like kind of how you work with it and what it can do and all of that. Do this really weird. You're going to see the bottom of the paint cap for a second while I get the bottom of the cape. Just try to keep that as smooth as possible. And we just need that hint of red color because it being so much in the shadows is going to solve a lot of the problems for us. Alright. So I'm going to grab my Abyssal Blue, which I use for the pants. It's right here. And we're going to look for just gray, maybe. Do we have a better color than that? This one. I'm going to use Arctic Blue, and I'm just going to mix these two to create some highlight colors. We're just going to do some quick spot highlighting on the pants, just to give those folds some volume and definition. There's not really a ratio to this, you know, just start with a lot less of the light color than you do the dark color, like 4:1, 5:1, whatever you think looks right. And then you can work your way up, adding more and more light color as you go. You want that blend to be smooth and not too startling, and we're going to probably use a wash if we have time, or a glaze, not really a wash. We'll use a glaze to go over, and kind of mellow down the highlights as we add them. But we're also going to do a little bit of classy blending too, just smooth out some of these transitions and stuff. And this just gives us our nice like I said, this is really to build the volume because it's a darker color. I just kind of want to emphasize those micro folds and the stretching of the fabric and a little bit of distress. It just helps the eye pick out these colors. So right now we're just looking for the tops of the folds where light would hit. And just blend a little bit. We're blending. I'm just going to focus mostly on the front and maybe a little bit on the sides. Give them a little bit of that booty blend. I said it. I'm not apologizing for it, Josh. Blending a little on his booty. His Dr. Booty. Needs a little blend. It's fine. Don't worry about it. I'm just going to mix in a little bit more of our bright. Come back in. Let's hit some of these folds a little bit harder. And as you get to your really bright kind of highlights, your upper edge highlights, you can certainly come in and you don't even have to follow the folds. You don't even have to follow the folds anymore if you don't want to. You can actually just draw in your like super highlights, and that'll just give that sense that the cloth is stretching and adds a bit more of that look. If you go watch the Ghostwriter video that Dallas did last week, right at the end when he was working on the headlamp for Ghostwriter's bike, he kind of went in and he did a lot of texture dots with a really bright color to give it kind of that three-dimensionality, to add volume to that otherwise flat surface. And that's kind of what you want to do here. And in order to make it not super harsh, you just come in with your other brush and you kind of blend them out just a little bit. But when I do these, I like to just come down at like a sharp kind of 45-degree angle. Somewhat like if you were painting a windshield and you wanted to get those little strikes. It gives that impression that light is really bouncing off the surface. And there's just one more area to add that extra pop. So I'm going to go to about a 1 to 4 on my dark to my light because I want this to be pretty bright. This is kind of like my extreme highlight. These pants. Kind of give the pants those little spots where that color, that light would zing off them. And if we go too far, we just take our other brush and blend them out. Just blend out those spots. When I paint, I usually like to put on like a movie that I've seen a lot or a TV show that I really like. Music is certainly one thing that, you know, I'll do at times, but I find having people talking, like voices, really helps. For whatever reason, it's not distracting to me. It's actually a great way to kind of like, you tune into what they're saying. My problem with music is I usually get too into it and then I start like getting the head bob, and I'm really into it. You know, it doesn't promote me to stay. Oh God, I just spit my other brush out of my mouth. It doesn't promote me to stay as still because I'm a little too aggressive when I listen to my music, I guess. So TV shows are really great one for me. All right, I think we got the pants all dialed in and they're looking pretty nice and sharp. And just those little bit of folds in there. So let's go and grab a little bit of cyan ink. Ooh, not that one. Not that one. There we go. So I'm gonna use some Inktense cyan, and we're just gonna go and create kind of a glaze out of this using this and about a 1-to-1 of medium and water. Maybe a little bit more water or a little bit more glaze depending on how much comes out of the pot. I want this to be pretty thin. So that looks pretty good. So you can kind of see here on my thumb a little bit what we're looking for, right? So we're just looking for something that's going to tint the surface. It goes on pretty even. It doesn't want to run into cracks or anything like that. And we're just going to run this over our Huldra blue. The idea here is that I'm just punching up the blue nature of the Huldra and tinting the surface just a little bit more. And this will just enhance the intensity of the color, but it won't take away the nice shadows and highlights and all that stuff that we had from the wash, because we don't want to do that. That was kind of our saving grace here in terms of our work effort. So when you do a glaze, unlike a wash where you want it to run into just the recesses and maybe do a little tinting on the cover or the top layers, with the glaze you want it to be a really even but super thin coat. Think like you're laying a translucent film of color over the top of whatever it is, you know? You put on those old school 3D glasses with the red and the blue, and then you close one eye and everything turns red, you know, becomes a hue of red because you've got that layer over it. That's what a glaze is trying to do. That's what a glaze is meant to do. It's just tinting the color underneath it. And so you can use glazes to take yellows and turn them to oranges and reds and all of this stuff. So Oh, our Doctor Strange will definitely have gloves. I mean, um, the real question is not if he has gloves, it's do the gloves have leopard print on them or not? And that's something that we'll have to decide. So why don't we just go ahead and jump to that. So I'm going to use a nice ochre color that I like to use for kind of yellows, which is, where did you go? Can't find the one that I like. That's okay. We will make do. Here we go. So we use this Mars orange, and we'll mix it with a little bit of this Sahara yellow to make kind of a nice golden ochre. It'll give us a good basis for our leopard print gloves. Oh, I said it, so I guess now we're doing it. Let's go in. And I'm not doing this as a wash. I just want this to be a nice solid base coat, because we'll build up the color. So this will take probably 2 to 3 coats, even though it's a pretty solid color, going over the gray Zenith Prime, because yellows are finicky, and ochres are less finicky than primary yellows, but they still need a couple coats because they're pretty light pigments. They're not blues for sure. And one of the things that we could have done when approaching this is, if we weren't kind of blazing through, we could have done a nice wash of sepia or a deeper brown and done that over the gloves first, and then we could have applied a thinner coat of our ochre and done more of a wash on it, and that would have given us some nice shaded yellows and stuff. We're just going to do it the classic way. So we're just going to base coat, do a couple of thin coats of base coat, we'll give it a quick wash, and then we'll come back in and do some highlights, and then we will add the leopard print as well. So, alright, so we're looking good there. I think I'm going to use the same color, and I'm going to start building out the yellow on the edges of the cape. Because he's an ostentatious fellow with a very fancy cape. You could do this in gold as well. That would certainly make sense. I don't remember if the MCU version was more of a true gold thread or if it was more of like a yellow thread. I don't think it was a gold thread, but I'll tell you this, most of the time when I have to do like a yellow trim on a cape or clothing, I'm just like, yeah, they're clearly important enough. It's gonna be gold. It's just gonna be a gold metallic filigree across the cape or whatever. Because yellow is just not my favorite color to paint, and that's okay. You can have colors that you like and colors that you loathe and colors that are in between, and yellow is definitely one of those colors where normally if I can avoid it, I will totally avoid it, because it's just not a fun one for me. But it's one that I've enjoyed working on, and I've gotten a lot better at it. Come on. Because of practice and just persevering, and so now I'm more comfortable doing it. And I've been doing a lot more true yellows, and I've had success with it. Like my Ebony Maw that I painted was definitely one of the first times where I was really, really happy with how my yellows came out and the way it all worked, and it was a good time. We had a party. Again, this just goes back to the nature of the hobby is No one's going to force you to do anything. You're going to get the chance to choose when you want to take those personal steps of progression and challenge. So it's kind of like going to the gym. Nobody really forces you to do that. You just got to get up and do it. Or, you know, keep an accurate score in golf by yourself. No one makes you, you know, be honest about how many times you hit it into the rough. If you're not doing a competition, it's all on you to just choose to accept what you can do and do better when you can. All right, so that's pretty good. We definitely got like a fast food restaurant look going on, but we're gonna tone back some of these colors with some washes and we'll improve it. But we have some really nice bases to start with. We're looking nice and bright. All right. Oh, I gotta get the collars. Collar's all red. That's okay. Maybe we'll just. Yeah, whatever. Why not? Why not? We left a little bit of edging, so. Now we're really off book. Because that collar definitely did not have yellow on the edging. It is a pure red collar, but we don't care. We're doing our thing. This is the Marvel home stream version of Mr. Strange, Mr. Doctor Strange. So we're just gonna go with it. Do that. Nice yellow edging. There we go. Top. Now, the eye, we will definitely do gold. So I'm going to go back. We're going to use his white detailing on his tunic. I'm going to use Arctic Blue for this, which has a nice blue-white. And again, I'm using primarily colors that are cool and have that blue in them to tie everything together. So we used a blue-black on the pants. We used a blue, obviously, on the tunic, a blue-green, comes specifically with Hold Your Blue. We're going to use a blue-white here. And all of this is just tonally going to tie everything together because those undertones of all those colors has the blue in it. So it's just going to make everything kind of complement and look nice. We got a plan. Now you can certainly approach it in a different way. You can use complementary colors with undertones. You can use tertiary colors. You can make tetrarchs. You can do all kinds of things. But knowing, you know, seeing that classic joke about which white do you like better, and you know the foolish spouse who's not into interior decorating goes, they're all just white. And as a painter, and once you work with paints a lot, you start to notice that white isn't always white. There's always these different kind of undertones of color in terms of what pigments are used. So you've got yellow whites and green whites, and same with blacks and all this stuff. And you know, blue greens, yellow greens, all that stuff. So identifying kind of those colors will help everything just tie together in a much better way that will be pleasing to the eye. And this is kind of like color theory from somebody who has no training in color theory. I've just picked up stuff along the way through naturally doing it. I'm listening to much smarter people like Dallas Kemp talk about these things and all of that. And it's trial and practice, and your eye will naturally just pick out things that look better too. So if you kind of trust your instincts, you're going to wind up with compositions that work really well. And sometimes you'll look at something and be like, well, that doesn't work at all because you chose colors that don't, complement each other very well, or discordant and things like that. And that's another chance to learn. And be like, oh, why didn't it work? Well, this is why. Why do I like this thing better? Why does this look nicer than the other thing? And sometimes it just really comes down to color choice and composition and all that good stuff. So I just mixed some pure white into my Arctic blue because we're already on a scale, and I don't want to use any other kind of off-white that doesn't have blue in it, because then we're going to get some really weird color mixing. I'm just going back in with some pure white and just doing in some highlights on this bad boy. Keep my colors thinned down and as smooth as I can. This white has a tendency to get really chalky and chunky on you. So instead of painting it, I'm actually just kind of like tapping it on and letting the capillary action from my brush do a lot of the work for me, because if you try to like paint it, white has a really nasty tendency, I found, to just pick up all those brush strokes, especially when you move more to the pure white side of it. So if you want a nice smooth white and you're not using an airbrush, and this is kind of the same trick I found with yellows, is just get a nice solid under foundation of whatever color you're doing, and then just kind of tap it in and you'll get a nice smooth result. So there's our white against our blue. It's looking really nice. Really happy with where this is going. I think the blue glaze is dried, so we're going to take some Holder blue. We're going to add some pure white to it. I learned this from Dallas because he uses Holder blue so much. We were having a conversation the other day. I was like, what do you use to highlight your Holder blue, Dallas? Because I haven't found one that really works well. And he's like, don't tell anyone. And now I'm totally telling people, because no one will believe it. But that's the one color that I use pure white to highlight with, because it's so punchy. It's got so much pigment and color to it. And it's such a unique color that pure white is the way to go. So all I'm doing here is the same thing I did on the pants, except because this was a lighter color, I'm really only worried about doing my super highs, so like my really spot kind of color. Highlights, I'm not going to do quite as much work as I did on the pants, because I just don't need to. So I just want to grab all of this color, and I just want to come in and I just want to hit some areas and like really flesh them out. And a little bit more white, which is also not something we usually say. Man, this color is just so punchy. Now I think you could definitely use some Arctic blue if you wanted to be quite not so cold. But the goal here is just going to go in and we're just going to find a couple areas. And again, we're just going to use our other brush. I'm going to help blend out these spots we're doing. Just trying to accentuate some of that volume. A little bit of really extreme highlighting. And less is more. For sure when it comes to this, it doesn't take a lot. Just really start to punch up what's going on there. And fold the cloth. And this will take, you know, I would call this a little bit more of an intermediate level, like, step, because it takes a lot of brush control, and obviously practice is going to get you that. And you'll notice that even I screw up and push a little too hard with my brush, and my paint gets a little too dry because I'm not paying attention to how it's flowing and stuff. And that's what that second brush is for. Ooh. Yeah, it's everybody's favorite Holder blue now. Everybody loves the Holder blue. It's a phenomenon, a global phenomenon. But yeah, when doing this, like, it's a really light touch. I'm not pushing really at all. It's almost like I'm trying to dry brush the color on in a really selective spot. Because I just want those high edges. I don't want a lot of the color. I just want it to be there so that we get these nice little zings. These zings of color. And those little zings just help pop out some of these folds, and they give a little bit more volume and life to the cloth. This is where you get really quiet and zone in, because you're trying to find directions. This is the point where you turn the radio down so that you can focus better on street signs. Alright. So we go, you can see how those folds are kind of popping a bit better now. Some nice differentiation, so that's looking really good. We might just go down because these straps, we want these straps to pop out, so I'm going to mix up kind of a mid-tone here. I don't want them to be quite as shiny because the light obviously wouldn't hit them quite as nicely, but I still want them to especially pop off those boots. So here I'm just looking to hit the top edges of those straps as best I can. I'm kind of just, you know, Wild Westing it, playing it by ear. Whatever straps I can see here. Just go through and hit. I'm not even going to look at the back side. I might look over at this side over here though. It's not impossible that somebody would see it from there. There we go. So now we got that nice color pop on those pants. Let's get our second coat down on our gloves. We got 5 minutes left. So I guess Dallas, since we only have 1 week on Doctor Strange before we dive into one Wilson Fisk next week, you'll have to spend most of your time showing people how you paint the rings. It's like synergy, man. Tag team synergistic action. I believe a according to our schedule, unless Josh changed it. We're going to be painting the one and only Wilson Fisk, current mayor of New York City, sinister foe of Spider-Man. The undisputed master of New York crime. So that should be a fun one to do. Because I've got that yellow still out. Just go back over the cloak. Cloak edges. Into our unique and very special Strange action where this yellow kind of trim around his collar, which again, I know, not comics accurate, but that's okay. All right. Purple rings are pretty cool. I had thought about purple rings for sure if I dove into it. I think purple would be pretty fun. Especially if you do like a true violet there, Dallas. Not like a magenta, but actually do like a Black Panther vibranium style purple. A really deep one. Looks so good. Alright, so this is kind of our stopping point because we are out of time, unfortunately. Not bad for an hour. We've got all the pants done. We've got the tunic done. The cape is what I would call done for tabletop. There's some things that we could go back in, just do a little shading and some highlighting and pop that. The yellows certainly could use the same effect, but, you know, outside of just doing a couple more things like we did on the pants and the tunic, we're looking pretty good here. So the rings will get covered here on Dallas's stream. He'll show you guys how to paint some super poppy magic rings on his Doctor Strange, which I think will work out great because I believe he's continuing a Doctor Strange that he did at Gen Con, right? I think it was Gen Con. I think it was online Gen Con. He had a Doctor Strange that he painted. Either way, thank you so much, guys, for joining me on today's stream. I look forward to hanging out with you all on Thursday at 1 p.m. Pacific when Dallas will be diving into his Doctor Strange, and it sounds like painting some purple rings. So there you go. Otherwise, watch out for all the characters that we've been painting this last month. They are going to be releasing next Friday, I believe. September 11th, I think is the date that Josh told me. So we're very excited to see you guys and gals and peoples get these in your hands. We always love watching things go up on social media as you guys are painting. So be sure to show that. Also, as a reminder, hashtag painting protocol. Our metallics challenge is over. The staff is going to be going through those images and picking. And Josh, I believe, will be announcing the next one for September. The new challenge on Dallas's stream at 1 p.m. Pacific this Thursday. So tune in to find out what we're going to be painting up and posting pictures of this time. Otherwise, guys, stay safe, enjoy. It's been great hanging out with everybody, and we will see you on the next one. Goodbye.